Okay. Well, hi everyone. Thanks for jumping on. I'm Matt Pereira, the founder of Seurat Analytics, and this is the first episode of the C-Store Intelligence Briefing. We'll keep it to 30 minutes to respect everyone's time here. And we're going to make sure we're going to use Dubai chocolate, that craze, as a lens into a much bigger question. What trends are actually worth chasing for C-store operators, and how do you tell? If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll keep an eye on it and address them as we go. So let's get into it. So one clear takeaway from both the NAC State of the Industry Summit a couple of weeks ago and their Asia Convenience Summit a couple of months ago is that convenience retailers really need to find a way to differentiate themselves and remain top of mind for consumers, even if only for the one thing they do especially well. Wu Haibin of Family Mart in China said it best. You have to be known for something. And for Family Mart, that's the scallion pancake and sweet corn sourced from a select few farms in Gansu province in China. For Rutter's, it's a new menu item every month, and right now that makes them the best place to find a taco in central Pennsylvania. And for the Farmer's Cellar in Minnesota, which is primarily a gas station, it's having a speakeasy hidden behind their convenience store. So if differentiation is a must and attention is scarce, it's only natural that operators look at trending food items as a way to win both of these things at once. Stocking something that people are talking about and showing up in their social feeds, doesn't that seem like a winning formula to get them through the door? So I would say you'd be forgiven for thinking that's exactly what differentiation should look like. There's some intuitive logic to it. What's trendy is going to bring footfall and attention and novelty, and LTOs are just the stock in trade of modern retail. And then fundamentally, if everybody else is doing it, are you really going to be the store that sits it out? So that's the typical operator intuition. And the question we're going to wrestle with in this webinar is when does that intuition serve you and when does it lead you over a cliff? So let's look at December 2023. A creator in the UAE named Maria Vehera was the first to post a 60-second video called Chocolate Covered Pistachio Bar ASMR to TikTok. And within 18 months, that video alone had accumulated over 120 million views. And it didn't stop there. By the time the trend peaked in searches on Google in the US in March of 2025, Dubai chocolate had spawned thousands of variants across TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and every social platform. These were other ASMR videos, reviews, travel vlogs, make it at home tutorials, copycats, parodies. It was a whole content ecosystem around this topic. And this is the moment that most C-store operators actually first heard about Dubai chocolate in March of 2025, or when the peak of US search interest happened. But by this point, the trend was already mature in social media. So this detection event that most operators experienced was already a year and a half late. So now here's where the story gets interesting. Through the summer of 2025, Mass CPG started launching their own versions of this. So brands like Hershey's, Lindt, Toblerone, Dubai chocolate was hitting food, drug, and mass shelves. And the result was something I was surprised to find when I looked at this data. There was actually a second wave of awareness over here. Search interest had climbed from 67 back up to 80 in July and August, exactly when those mass merchandiser launches hit the shelves. So mass distribution actually moved the national search index, which is a pretty big deal. And just a quick note before I go further, when I cite these search index numbers, I'm using Google's topic search, not the actual search string. So topic searches, you can see here that's denoted by it labels it food. They catch things like misspellings, synonyms, other language searches. All of these are rolled together. So if somebody searches for Dubai chocolate, pistachio kunafa chocolate, any of the concept expressions, Google's knowledge graph entity knows what that means. As a former Googler, I can tell you that this matters more than people think. The topic gives you a real signal about what's happening in search. And if you just search for the keyword, you're only going to get a sliver of that search volume. So back to the trend line here. So after this second little blip, it settled at a new sustained normal of around 47 on the Google Search Trends Index, and it holds steady at a little less than half of the overall peak of demand. So Dubai chocolate didn't fully go away, it just settled into this new state, this new steady state. And this is the shape of a trend that takes on category moving status. So pickles did this, hot honey did this. Some fads don't disappear, they just take on this new steady state, new normal. So here's an important question. When this trend was happening, who in the C-store space actually jumped on it? Actually, almost everyone. Wawa did it with pistachio hot chocolate, Cumberland Farms, 7-Eleven, Cheats, Speedway, Circle K, they all launched bars. Both spellings of Quick Trip went with a Lindt bar. Maverick went with Leonessa. AM, PM, and Murphy launched this in some of their stores, and Love's launched Royale bars. Actually, only 3 out of the 15 majors showed no evidence of having done it at all. Casey's, Racetrack, and Pilot. And as of this morning, 7-Eleven and Speedway are still stocking those premium bars at a $20 price point, and we'll come back to that detail in a minute. So now the question is, was this actually the right move? And the honest answer is no, not for most operators. And there are 5 key structural reasons why. One would be price value mismatch. So $22 for a C-store impulse buy that you can get for $7 at a actual chocolatier down the street. That doesn't necessarily work for most consumers. Two is channel positioning. Most people don't visit C-stores in search of a $22 luxury import. Three is the practical melt risk. We're talking about pistachio cream and milk chocolate in trucks and warehouses in July across the United States. And most stores in this category don't have any kind of cold chain storage. Four, mass merchandiser advantage. Target and Costco have enormous merchandise and display footprints and price flexibility that C stores don't. And five, the repeat purchase failure. Every TikTok review of the C-store version of these bars says the same thing. That wasn't worth $20. So first time only purchase means no LTV. You only sold it once and they're not coming back for that again. And I also want to just call your attention to this photo in the corner. There's a stark quality difference between mass and craft, even at the same price point. You see on the left that picture of the bar from a local chocolatier versus the Lindt on the right. You can see the kataifi mixed in with the pistachio and the excellent crunch that'll generate versus what's almost nougat-like from the Lindt version on the right. That's a big difference for the same price. So, how would you have known if Dubai chocolate was the right trend to jump on? When something's going viral, it's hard to tell when it's a fad and when it's a real trend. And at Seurat Analytics, we don't just want to describe past trends, we want to give you frameworks for evaluating trends and tools for spotting them in the future. The good news is that the data you need to make this call is already public and pretty easy to access. There are 3 main sources we'd suggest you consider. The first is Google Trends, the search line itself, plus the DMA level breakdown of where searches are concentrating. That matters both for your trade area and for understanding how the trend is spreading. And remember that topic search principle from earlier. That's what makes Google Trends actually insightful. Second is where the item is stocked. Which stores are carrying it? Is it originator stores or specialty chains or value retailers or mass CPG? Third is what it costs, the price points across those retailers, and the pace at which prices fall. That's its own signal. So I'm going to walk through how to read the first one, and I won't presume that everyone on the call is a math major. So if you're not following any of this, put a note in the chat. So the most important thing I want you to take away from the math part here isn't the peaks or the curves, it's the slope of the line heading up and down from those peaks. That's what tells us where we are in the life of a trend at any given moment. Most operators will look at the level where the trend is right now compared to its own history. That's what we call a state variable. It tells you what already happened. When we look at the slope of the line, that tells you whether the trend is rising, peaking, or falling. That's a directional variable, and it tells you what's about to happen. So let's take a look at this in the context of the actual trend lines for Dubai chocolate. This is Dubai chocolate searches on US Google Trends from January 2024 through last week. There are two lines on this chart. The orange line is the level, the actual search level from search volume in Google Trends, and the gray line is the slope of that line, the derivative. Let's look at the orange line first, and I would describe it as a three-act story. Act one is the boom. There were 11 straight months of zero activity until very late in 2024. US Google search interest doesn't even register despite the trend going viral globally. Then in December of 2024, search interest starts to move. By March of 2025, we're at the index ceiling, and that's the boom. Act two is what I would call the echo. After March, search starts to decline, but by July and August, it climbs back up to an 80 index. That bump corresponds to the wave of mass CPG launches and dupes hitting Walmart, Target, Kroger, and mass distribution, which successfully launched a second wave of awareness. That's not back to this peak, but it's a real noteworthy bump. Then there's Act 3, this new normal period. From September on, search settles into the high 40s. This is Dubai Chocolate's new category status, and the trend has at this point matured into a permanent fixture, maybe 40% of peak demand. So this demonstrates that some fads don't die, they just graduate. And now if we look at the gray line here, this is the slope. So of the 17 months since US Google search interest took off in December of 2024, only 7 of these have been positive, above this zero line we have in the chart. The other 10 were flat or they were falling. So even with the echo and with the new normal, the dominant momentum signal here has been negative. 7 out of 17 months. So that should really give you a strong signal that this could be a fad. Don't worry if you're not sure how to plot this yourself. It's the principle that matters here. And in the next few slides, I'll show you how to read these same dynamics without using math or slopes at all. So the slope of the line is the first of 4 signals that make up our trend window index. And we use these 4 public data signals as inputs to land on one final verdict. I'll show you more about how to do that in a minute. But let's go through what those 4 signals are. One is the slope of the search trend line. That's what we just covered. And we want to look at search momentum, not its current state. 2 is regional versus national DMA spread. When a trend is searched in 5 markets, it's just a coastal novelty. When you start seeing it show up in every DMA, when it's actually gone national, that's a late stage indicator. 3 is the position on something we call the retail rollout ladder, and this is literally a ladder. Each rung on that ladder is a retail tier that the trend has climbed, from the stores that started it, to specialty chains, to value retailers, to mass merchandisers. And each rung that it goes up narrows the window of opportunity to get in on the trend. We're going to plot Dubai chocolate on that ladder on the next slide. 4 is the price reduction trend, or how fast is the retail price falling. Dubai chocolate went from $22 in specialty retailers to $3.99 at Trader Joe's in roughly 60 days. Falling prices are a proxy for commoditization and runaway discounting. So together, these 4 inputs feed one verdict, and that's where we're heading next. So here's the retail rollout ladder with Dubai chocolate plotted on it, and let's take a look at those 5 rungs. Let's start with rung 1, those originator stores. There was a store in Dubai called Fix Dessert Chocolatier, and a variety of artisan shops where this first showed up. This goes back to 2021. And stocking it at this point would have made you way early, and I don't know how you would have known in the US that this was going to be a thing. Rung 2 is the specialty chains. Shake Shack actually launched this in February of 2025, a shake version of this. The window of opportunity is still wide open, but things are moving fast. Rung 3 is the value retailers. Trader Joe's, as I mentioned, launched for $3.99 in May of 2025. That sold out in minutes. Aldi followed quickly right after that. And at this point, the window of opportunity is closing. Rung 4 is premium mass CPG. So brands like Lindt Ghirardelli launched their version in late 2025. And at this point, that window of opportunity is almost shut. And rung 5, the mass CPG everyday brands, Hershey's, for example, launched on December 4th, 2025, also sold out in only 5 days. Mondelez followed quickly after that. At this point, you could see the window of opportunity totally closed to get in on this trend. The trend had passed its trendiness. Here's the second insight from this ladder. The speed of the climb is also signal. Dubai Chocolate climbed all 5 rungs of this ladder in about 22 months. That's really fast. Trends that turn out to be durable C-store opportunities, things like pickles, hot honey, or spam, they climb the ladder over years and sometimes a decade. A fast climb is also a signal that it's a fad. A slow climb is more of an enduring trend. So here's where we bring it all together. We just walked through the 4 inputs, and now I want to show you what they tell you to do. When you see a pattern across those inputs, what's the actual verdict? So the 4 verdicts we look at are go, hold, stop, and reconsider. So let's go through some quick definitions of those. Go means jump in. You're early enough to be a differentiator in this. Hold means let's pause for a minute and watch. Let's gather more signal before committing some inventory to this. Stop means don't initiate stocking this product if you haven't already started. And reconsider is just a different kind of answer that comes later, and I'll explain that when we get there. So from December 2024 to March 2025, we were in the go phase for Dubai Chocolate. This is the boom we talked about. The window of opportunity was wide open. And what did US C-stores actually do? Most of them were still sitting it out at this point. Only the Korean operator CU was on trend, and they had already moved 820,000 units in 2024. They got in way early. From April through June of 2025, we were in the hold period. The peak had really passed, but a handful of US specialty retailers started stocking it. Most C-store operators hadn't started at that point either. From July through November of 2025, we had reached the stop period because we saw Trader Joe's launch that bar and mass distribution began. This is the time when most USC stores actually did start to stock Dubai Chocolate. It was really 2 to 5 months past the peak, and many of them rolled out with this premium bar at an above $20 price point, even when Trader Joe's had the $4 version on their shelves. This was a pretty expensive move pretty late in the game. From December 2025 through today, I'd call this the reconsider phase, and this is where the trend has matured to category status. And the question changes from, does this fit my category strategy, to what are the after the trend economics of stocking something like this? And here's where we can think about 7-Eleven and Speedway again. They're still stocking these $20 bars, which is premium pricing on what's now become a commodity product. So it's not just that they were late, they're charging more for something you can get elsewhere. And is that really the right thing to be doing? So here's what I might call the gift you came for. You don't need to calculate line slopes as we did a few slides ago. You can actually get a lot of the same insight just by watching the retail rollout ladder. The retail rollout ladder works as a one proxy input because it shows up after the other signals that we talked about for that index. By the time a trend advances a rung on the retail rollout ladder, the search trend slope and the prices have usually already moved. So the ladder is an imperfect signal, but a usable one for most operators. And watching one signal definitely beats watching four. So let's take a closer look at how this would work. These are five trends that we're currently watching plotted on the retail rollout ladder, and we're using the same four verdicts from the synthesis slide, go, hold, stop, and reconsider, just driven by the retail rollout ladder position alone. So when we look at Swangy, the originators are still the ones who stock this type of thing. This is the next version of Swicy, sweet and spicy and tangy. Industry trends reports are calling this the one to watch for 2026. You're going to find it on chef-driven menus and in craft sauces, things like hot honey and lime, gochujang plus tamarind. This definitely isn't mainstream in retail yet, and the window of opportunity for this type of flavor is wide open. If you can credibly play here, you should. Matcha. This is now available at specialty chains, and this is still also in Go. It's widely available at what I'd call third wave coffee shops, but it hasn't really hit value retail in a meaningful way. So there's still time to get in on this, but it's moving fast. If you look at Swicy, where something like Swangy will head eventually, this is in the hold space. Sweet plus spicy. Trader Joe's already sells a ton of this. If you haven't moved on Swicy yet, it's probably late. Cottage cheese. This has already reached mass CPG premium. It's time to stop stocking inventory in this. Did anyone see this trending on TikTok earlier this year? Walmart, Target, and Meijer did, and they already have their own private label versions. It would be tough to enter now as a trend play, but we'll see in a year whether this earns that reconsider status. And pickles, they're already mass CPG everyday private label brands. So good old-fashioned pickles were peaking around the same time as Dubai chocolate, but pickles settled into a permanent, higher interest level new normal. They're everywhere now, and the question isn't, should I get on the trend? It's how do pickles fit into my category strategy? So I'm going to show you the answer to that in a minute. But one thing I want to point out, this is how this type of insight could work for your next Tuesday morning review. Look at the scout list on the bottom here for specialty retail, and let's get more specific on what we mean by specialty. Specialty isn't Whole Foods. Specialty is Erewhon in LA, Jungle Gyms in Ohio, Wegmans in the Northeast, Central Market in Texas, Bristol Farms on the West Coast. These chains are too curated for trend forecasters to track, but big enough that an item showing up there means it's about to climb the ladder. If you see one of these flavor profiles or ingredients or a SKU pattern showing up in these stores, it's definitely at rung one or two, and the opportunity window is still open, so you have time to test that. If you've already launched in value retailers, if you see it at Trader Joe's or Aldi, it's late. So I know some of you are thinking, Matt, these are great names, but they're not in my market, and that's fair. The specialty layer is highly regional. So if you want a scout list of specific stores to watch in your DMA or your trade area, just drop me an email, mattp@seuratanalytics.com, and I'll make you one. So we just talked about when to jump on a trend, but now let's talk about how to play once you've decided to follow a trend. Because here's the thing, most operators stock trends and very few operators know how to operationalize them. Doing that successfully is the difference between losing money and building a moat. Trends done right can become identity for a brand, not just inventory. And two operators that we already talked about, Wawa and Rudders, are doing this exactly right. But I want to go into detail on how they did this because that matters. Wawa, at Wawa, the trend was pickles. Everyone was going crazy for pickles in 2024 and 2025. Most C-store operators did what you'd expect, and they stocked pickle products and maybe ran an LTO and watched it for a few months. But Wawa did something different. They folded pickles into their existing 246 value menu ladder, offered three SKUs with the same flavors for three different occasions, a grab-and-go pickle, a pickle ranch sandwich, and a larger format pickle ranch hoagie. But notice what they didn't do. They didn't add a separate pickle line they'd have to support and market and eventually sunset. They threaded pickles into the architecture that they already had. And the result was that at the peak of the Dubai chocolate craze, while everybody else was choosing a new shiny trend, Wawa was running ads for Pickle Ranch. The window open posture trend they made their own. And that's not stocking something, that's creating a new identity. Let's look at Rudders. Their trend was spam, possibly inspired by a trip to Hawaii. Most C-store operators wouldn't even consider spam. It's too risky or too regional, but Rudders locked in a 5-year exclusive partnership with Hormel. They're the only C-store east of the Mississippi where you can get a Hormel licensed spam dog. And then they made a really savvy marketing move. They posted on Instagram, "Together at last, the spam dog announcement." And a few weeks later, they posted temporarily sold out. And the sold out wasn't actually a problem they needed to fix. It was evidence of a demand signal they wanted to show their followers. So here's the principle. Stocking the trend is inventory. Operationalizing the trend becomes identity. And that's the difference between chasing the wave and building a defensible moat. Now, does this work for every trend? Probably not. And it doesn't work for every operator, which is what I want to talk about on the next slide. So I want to spend a minute on the exception here, because I just told you that most operators shouldn't chase trends like Dubai chocolate. But there's one operator I keep watching who does, and it works for them. And I think this is a good example of another way to pursue these types of things. Loop markets in California. Loop, California, of course, is a unique C-store market. They have decades of Circle K and 7-Eleven dominance that for consumers there has shaped a generic kind of low expectations convenience culture. Think only roller dogs and fluorescent lights. That's the baseline. Loop is a challenger brand in this context. They're bringing this East Coast operator brand thinking to the West Coast, Wawa, Rudders, and Cheat style. But they're doing it in a market appropriate way. It's trend driven, socially native, and fast moving. For Loop, trends aren't just a question of should we, they're the core equity. Loop's entire job is to live in the open window of opportunity territory and then exit before that kill moment. That's a real strategy for them, and it works because they've built the operating model to support it. They've got fast inventory cycles, social first marketing, and they have a brand with permission to experiment. But most operators aren't Loop, and they shouldn't pretend to be. If your operating model is built for predictable category management or stable go-tos for your customer base, chasing trends is probably going to hurt you. If you're built for novelty, though, like Loop is, sitting on the sidelines is probably going to hurt you. So it's important to know which type of store you are or you want to be. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Not should I chase trends or should I avoid them? That's probably the wrong framing. The real question is, what kind of store do you want to be? Trends aren't a yes or no question, they're a fit question. Loop's job is to chase them. Wawa's job is to add flavor into their menu and move on. Redditor's job is to do it as an LTO and to pivot, and all three of these are correct strategies for those stores. But remember our framework. Watch a trend slope, not the current level. Watch the retail rollout ladder, who's stocking what and when, and know which kind of operator you want to be before you decide which trends should be yours. So if any of this sparked something for your own stores, my email is on this slide, and please feel free to reach out to me at any time. And while you're here, I just want to give you a heads up. Episode 2 of this series will be on May 28th, and we're going to take a position that runs against industry consensus on tracking consumer behavior from pump to POS in store. There are some real privacy concerns there, and from our standpoint, it introduces response bias. So we'll use the same analytical lens we use today to make the case for a different approach. So please join us and bring your questions. So thanks again for tuning in to our episode 1. See you next time.